Hey guys, John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of EO Fire, and you're listening to Bravepreneur Parents Academy with Balaji O.
Welcome to Bravepreneur Parents Academy, where the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs reveal their most defining childhood moments and share their legacy for raising brave little heroes who will grow up to change the world. And now, he still reads comic books under the blanket at bedtime. Please welcome your host, best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and self-confessed geek dad, Balaji O. You know, like the hotel in Vegas? Yeah, no, that's really his name. Balaji O.
Welcome back to another edition of the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. Today, we get to talk to a dynamic man on a mission. You're going to want to hear this man's message. He goes by Daniel Giordano, and he is the host of the All In podcast. Listen, after 20 years of painting houses for wealthy people that were living their dream lives, Daniel got fed up, took some serious action, and in the process created his own dream life for himself and his family. So get ready, put on the seatbelt, strap in, lean forward. Daniel's about to teach us how to go all in and have our own breakthrough moment. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction, man. I love your energy. Right? It's awesome.
Daniel, it is a distinct pleasure to be able to talk to someone with a fascinating story like yours. Man, you went from painting millionaires' homes to creating your own dream life. I got to hear that story, Daniel. I mean, I've learned a little bit about it, but that is an amazing breakthrough. Can you paint the picture for us, just very briefly, as to where you were in your former career and how you made that transition?
Sure, absolutely. You know, one of the biggest things, the most dynamic moments for me was the day my daughter was born, and I held her in my arms. And looking down at her thinking, I am responsible for this child. Right? And, you know, what I recognized were some things in my own life that, you know, while I had great parents and, you know, they are still together to this day, there were things that I saw where my father was very old school of, you know, provide for the family, and, you know, I come from a typical Italian macho family, you know, environment. So with that, what I recognized was, there were some things I wanted to do differently. Right. Not that there was anything bad there. It was just I recognized I wanted to be the father that was going to be home. Right. And be able to spend time with my kids. Because one of the things that I also recognized was, you know, a lot of times, especially in today's day and age with people being pulled all different types of directions, what I realized was, you know, I got married to spend time with my wife. I had children to spend time with my children. Right.
Wow. Yeah,
but yet I was involved in an environment and a business that was taking me away from all of that.
Right.
And being away from my family 12 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week was not my ideal life. We only get one shot at this, so I might as well do it the way I envision it. So for me, it was literally a drastic change. It was I had to go. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was working in a $10 million home on the beach in Highland Beach, Florida, and I'm looking out at the ocean. And I had become very interactive with my clients because I would always ask them, and pretty much interview them. I could probably start a podcast back then, right? I would always ask them, what do you do for a living? How did you become successful? Just kind of picking their brains. And I remember sitting there looking out the window, and I'm like, this has to stop. I need to do something differently. I do not want to leave my kids every day and not be able to do what I want to do with them whenever I want to. And I need to create something different. So, I'd like to say it was overnight, but it wasn't. It was years of me investing in different things with personal development. It was years of me banging my head against the wall until I figured some things out. And my mentality has always been take action, and then sometimes things are going to work, sometimes they're not. Obviously, you can accelerate the process by getting mentors in your life. And I didn't know, I wasn't even smart enough to figure that out until after a couple of years of being in the industry I was in, to say I need to find somebody that's been down this path. But ultimately, over the course of several years, I was able to literally stumble into the affiliate marketing industry and be able to replace my income. And with that, there was fears of, am I going to get paid? These people say they're going to pay me, and all of the things that we put ourselves through in the programs that we have that tell us differently than what we know is the truth. And what I recognized is the day that wire hit my account for the first time, I was never going to have to pick up a paintbrush again. And that was a powerful day for me, going, down that path, to be able to, paint a picture and create whatever it was I wanted to create. So from that point forward, I'd worked in many different industries, in the personal development industry, in the network marketing industry, real estate investment, mortgage industry. I worked with all different types of businesses, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies, till mom and pop shops. So with that, it was just an amazing thing, because the most important thing was I was the dad that was there with my kids at school when they were in school. We homeschool now, but it was me and 40 moms. They would always say, doesn't this guy work? Why is he always here? Right? And it was because I chose something different.
Look at that. Look at that. Dan, I love that story. And, a lot of us entrepreneurs probably feel like we've been going all in, at least on the business side. We're putting in endless hours. We're putting in sweat and tears and effort and mental investment, and we're just not breaking through. I appreciate the fact, Dan, that you talked about how it wasn't overnight success for you. What about for those other entrepreneur parents who've had their epiphany? They've realized they need a different career, a different lifestyle, but they're in that dip where they're trying this, they're trying that, and it's just not working. How were you able to stay mentally sharp and not give up through all those tough transitions?
I think the biggest thing for me was really just plugging along and keeping my head down on the goal. The goal was I wanted to be able to stay home with my kids. Now, I had made some drastic decisions. One of those decisions was I was moving out of the nice neighborhood in Boca Raton, Florida, and I was downsizing.
Really?
And I had to make some decisions based on what's going to free up cash so that I don't have to be out of the house. I mean, I walked away from a multi-million-dollar contract and gave it to another painting contractor and just kept enough work to keep food on the table and keep the lights on and keep some cash flow coming in, because I knew that I was going to be stuck in that trap, for forever, if I didn't do something drastic. So, I had to make some drastic decisions. And I tend to do that in my life, make radical decisions. And, like some of the things I have going on right now, which we'll get into a little bit later, I tend to push myself to levels that I know, are going to stretch me.
That is pretty drastic, Dan. You downsize the house, first and foremost. That's not trivial. I mean, moving, even when it's quote-unquote a good move, when you're moving up,
right,
or moving for a new job or something, that's not a trivial move. You put yourself and your family through that stress of moving to downsize.
Right. And what's amazing about that story is that the first week we moved into where we moved in, it wasn't the best neighborhood. And someone was literally shot and killed down the street.
Oh, my God.
And I remember looking at my wife thinking, what did I just do? Like, why did I make this decision? But I had to, say, okay, look, I have to do something different here. And, this is a temporary situation. And it was temporary. It just, looking back, I often tease my wife about it. And I say, hey, how about we do that again? Right? She looks at me like I'm crazy. But, it was an amazing experience for me, because it let me free up the time so that I could figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. Right, is really what it came down to. It's like, what am I capable of doing? And it opened up the opportunity for me to invest some time into myself and really figure out some things.
And the other thing that you did, which is really amazing, a multi-million-dollar contract, and you walked away. You gave it to somebody else.
Right.
That's really tough to do. I think that might be even more difficult, as hard as the downsizing concept is for a lot of us. That might be even more difficult because that contract could have kept your family going, albeit maybe at the same or slightly better level. Maybe it would have given you more income, but you would have had the same lifestyle away from your kids.
Right.
And you decided to turn your back on that.
Yeah, and I can tell you it wasn't an easy decision, but it was at a point in my life where I was motivated by the kids, and I just did not want to miss a moment, of them growing up, and they're growing up fast. My baby girl's now 15, and she's driving.
Wow.
And I look at that and I'm like, what just happened? I was just changing your diaper when you were born, right? I'm like, going through that process of being a dad has been one of the most rewarding things, and to really get it. And that's part of the reason, even the all-in message that I have is, I have an all-in dad thing that's coming out soon because it pains me to see kids that don't have a relationship with their father, that don't have a father figure in their life, and how I can pour into them in some way, shape, or form, and pour into dads and help them step up in an area they may be struggling in, because not everybody, as you know, doing what you do, not everybody has had the privilege of having a good upbringing and or a father that actually poured into them, and all the different things that are associated with that.
Right. Very true, and I commend you on that. Dan, one of the things that strikes me about your all-in message is, first and foremost, it starts with the intent, having a clear intent as to where you want to be and where you want to go. And then you follow it up with commitment. So your action, you walked the walk after deciding what talk you wanted to talk. But sometimes, Dan, it seems like no matter what we do on our own, we're either going down the wrong path or taking the long, circuitous route. How did you discover the whole concept of mentors and accountability partners? Where did that come from, and how has it helped you?
That's a loaded question. When I started earning income online, I got to the point where I'm what you would consider a workhorse. So I just I love doing what I do, but I'll put in endless hours because it's not work to me, because I love doing what I do. So when I had enough revenue coming in that I literally did not have to do anything, I spent a lot of time going to Disney, going to the beach, hanging out with the kids. And then, how often could you do that before you get bored of it, right? One of the things that happened for me was, for the first time in my life, I had an abundance of resources, and I'm like thinking, okay, well, the next obvious step is I need to start investing, right? So somehow I had wound up on a real estate investor type list, and someone was doing, now I'm dating myself, this is going back to just teleclasses. We did not have webinars then, right?
All right.
Yeah, and I remember I jumped on a teleclass. It was a Thursday night, and the guy did an offer for a real estate investment stuff, but he also talked about how these same skill sets could apply to your business, because it was online marketing, and I was like, well, I need that. I know exactly I need that. And, it was $2,500. And I had never purchased something at that level from anybody. But, what I did was I messaged the guy because he was telling me that, it's going to be 3 months out. And I'm like, no, wait a minute, right? I need this now, right? Yeah. When's the next one? And he said, well, I'm doing one tomorrow in Atlanta. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I said, well, what can I do to get there tomorrow? And he said, well, it's sold out. And I said, well, I'll sit on the floor. I don't care. And I'm coming tomorrow. So I booked my flight. I booked my flight, and fortunately and unfortunately, I was the last flight in because there was an ice storm. And literally at the end of that event, I asked the guy one simple question. How much would it cost me for you to invest a day with me? I don't want any year-long process. I want one day.
Wow.
Right? And because of that, I flew back the following week and spent an entire day. And what was amazing to me, it was twofold. One was, I didn't recognize what I knew. because I was too close to it. Yes, I knew I was having success, but I remember it like it was yesterday. He wrote everything out on the whiteboard at the Georgia Tech Hotel. We were in the conference room, and it was this massive whiteboard, and he starts asking me questions, and he's writing down all this stuff, and he says, "You've never been to an internet event." And I said, "I'm not smart enough to even Google internet." I just literally plugged in and, kept plugging away till I found something that worked. The amazing thing for me was recognizing that the exact same things and processes and systems that I was using could be applied to anything. And that was my first mentor in my life. Now, since then, I've had many mentors and many accountability partners, and I have them in different areas of my life. Spiritually, I have accountability partners through my, men's group in my church. I have accountability partners in business that hold me accountable to achieving what I say I want. Because if I'm not going to hold myself accountable, and put myself out there, then, I might as well just go live an average life. And there's so much more to do in this world. There's so many more lives to impact. There's so much more that we're capable of. But yet, most of us will get comfortable in certain areas. And I know that because I've gotten comfortable when I look back at my life, I've gotten comfortable at different points. Not that I wanted to stay there, but there are areas where we get stagnant sometimes because we think we've arrived.
Right. Wow. So that first mentor in Atlanta really exposed to you how much further you can move. Not only did he show you how much you knew, but how much further you can move by stretching yourself and getting someone to push you a little bit.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, that's excellent. Dan, I want to transition a little bit because even before you became an amazing lifestyle entrepreneur, even before you started teaching other people how to do the same, you had an amazing work ethic. You had an amazing drive and character. And I want to know how that was created. We want to know how your parents accomplished that. So with your permission, we're going to put you in the red phone booth. Clark Kent is going in. We're going to watch Superman come out. So I got some lightning round questions to ask you. Is that cool?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, let's go into it. This is going to be lightning quick. Number one, your favorite superhero.
My favorite superhero would probably have to be Superman.
Superman, the gold standard. What about your favorite cartoon show growing up?
My favorite cartoon show. There's many that come to mind, but I always remember the cartoon. I believe it was a Bugs Bunny cartoon, or one of those where I can't remember the kid's name, but it was the kid would be looking out during class and he would be daydreaming about all these,
Yeah.
I just relate to that because I would always be daydreaming about something, right?
That is hilarious. I'd forgotten about that one. That's great. Did now you mentioned you come from an Italian family. Did you guys have a family tradition growing up that you love?
Yeah. We would, with my grandmother, we'd always get together several times a year for different things. One of them we would get together and make homemade Italian sausage as a family and make enough for the year for the entire families that were
really.
And that was just a fun time getting together doing that. And then we would make our own, homemade Italian, some people call it sauce. We call it gravy coming from Philadelphia. And just being around the family every weekend at my grandmother's was just awesome experience.
Yeah. Very, very much a family-oriented kid, it sounds like. Now, what kind of drove you? Where did your identity come from as a child? Where did you see yourself in relation to the world as a kid?
Well, I think that I always found myself driving myself to do more, whether it was in sports or in business. And I was fortunate that my father had a part-time business as a painting contractor. So from the time I was a young kid, he used to drag me out and I'd go to work with him. And that evolved into me actually, pretty much running crews and pretty much running the business at that point, when I was a teenager. So, because my dad did have a full-time job on top of that. And, but because of that, I developed a strong work ethic of, putting in a ton of hours. I would work 40 hours a week and still, 40 plus hours a week and still, go to school, finish all that and play ice hockey. So, it was just, there was just a drive to, be able to accomplish more.
Dan, where did that drive come from? Was that something that was inherent in you? Did it come from your parents? Is it just genetic? And the reason that I asked that question, Dan, is because obviously you've been going all in for a minute. This didn't just pop up as a tactic or a strategy. And as a parent, I see my sons. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 8-year-old plays soccer, and he's got some talent, but what I'm working on with him is that work ethic. Right? I'm trying to instill that work ethic in him. So I'm curious to know how this became your superpower, Dan, and perhaps how we parents can start to instill that ability to go all in our kids.
Absolutely. Well, I have I have an interesting story that will tie in with that. And I believe that my work ethic clearly came from my father. And he just was a hardworking, he's a hardworking guy that's always just, done what he can to provide for the family. And that pretty much set the tone for me, in my work area. And, it just applied for me in every area of my life. Not that I was, not that I recognized it, probably didn't recognize it till much later, but there was a pivotal point that came up for me as a parent back in, let's see, I don't even know what year it would be, but I was 39. I'm 46 now. But at 39 years old, my kids had started martial arts. I had figured I'll live my dreams through my kids. I never got to do it. I wanted to do it, but I just never got to, right? And I figured, well, I'm too old for this now. I'm not going to do this at this age. I had become friends with the guy, the master that runs that dojo, and he kept telling me, why don't you just come in for private lessons? I know you don't have time with business and all that, but if you come in for, an hour every week, we can work on stuff. Well, he knew what he was doing, right? Once he got the hook in me, I was in. Right, I was all in. I had to see it through, and going through that process, it transitioned a few months later into, well, you should probably consider taking some group lessons. And because what he did was he put me into a test with a group, and at the end of the thing, they always ask you questions. And it came to me, it was, Dan, what did you learn today? I was like, I learned that I need to work with more people, different body types, and he's like, well, you may want to consider coming to a group class instead. And I was like, he knew what he was doing from day one.
Got him. So
now I'm into the group stuff. Now, with sometimes bigger guys than me, getting knocked around, coming home, a little beat up and feeling like, I could make every excuse. I have a back problem from an accident. I have a neck problem from an accident. Every excuse I could come up with of why I didn't need to go. But there was an important thing going on. I had 3 children at that time, about 2 years in, that I had 3 kids that were in the dojo going through the ranks. And if I quit, I set the example for them.
Wow.
And I just could not live with myself knowing that if I said, I'm not doing this no more, I'm setting them up for failure in areas of their life.
Wow. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, because Daddy looks at, and then Daddy, they'll look at Daddy. Daddy quit, so I could quit. Right. And, even my one son, he had some struggles, and, just like I was going through, he had struggles, with not wanting to do it anymore, and he pushed through, and he was able to get through it. But, it's taught them, definitely some things with leadership, with character development, with respect, with all the, rules that you would learn in a dojo, and in life. And, because of that, last week, my 2 oldest tested for their adult black belt now, being in their, 8 years.
Wow.
And I have a 8-year-old that just tested for a 2nd-degree black belt. So,
fantastic.
So I look at that and I say, if I had quit, I'm setting them up for failure. Maybe not related to martial arts, maybe to something else in their life, because they recognize they could give up on something.
Goodness. So you're telling me that these kids are watching what we're doing.
Absolutely. Watching everything we do.
That's amazing. I love that story. I'm curious to know, you talked about your dad's work ethic and how he has a part-time company and other work going on as well, very much a provider. What kind of parenting style did your parents bring to the table overall? I
think the core thing was, being Italian and old school it was their way or the highway. So it was much different than maybe some of the parenting styles today. I wouldn't say, it was, when you talk about the verse that talks about spare the rod, spoil the child, I definitely saw the rod a few times.
Boy.
But I was a little slow with getting things sometimes.
Oh, man, I understand. So today, what would you now say is your number one job, Daniel, as dad to those beautiful kids you have?
The number one job is to set them up to win in this world and go out and have a positive impact in the world, to impact others, and be able to recognize the fact that it's not going to be easy. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be obstacles that come up, but at the end of the day, they need to be prepared for that. As we live in a crazy world, that definitely they need to be prepared for.
Amen. That's true indeed. We're going to wrap up in just a couple of minutes, but there are a couple more very important questions I want to ask you, Dan,
Sure.
before I let you go. Okay, so this first question, Dan, is a time capsule question, and this is a doozy. This is not easy to answer. But let's pretend, with your permission, it's 30 years from now, maybe even 20 years, and your kids are out of the house, they're married, might even have their own little Dans running around.
Mm-hmm.
Or Danielas. What would you say to your kids? This is 30 years in the future. What would you say to them about 2015? Why Dad did the things he did, made the decisions he made, worked so hard, spent time with them, homeschooled, didn't quit karate. What would you say about all the decisions you made in 2015 to them 30 years from now? What would you want them to hear?
I believe the main drive for me has been to leave a lasting legacy and impact the world, and I can't do that myself. I need my not just my own children, but the parents and the children behind me and the thousands behind me. That I am called to leave a legacy that's not about me. That's about stepping up and doing something productive. That is impactful, to not, take from society, but to actually give, and go out and really have a positive impact and make a difference in people's lives, whether that means, have them, make them smile or be able to pour into them in some other way to help them overcome the challenges that they're going through in their life.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful, and I know that not only your kids, but a whole bunch of other kids and families are really benefiting from your all-in principles. Folks, we've been listening to Dan Giordano. He is the host of the All-In podcast. Very inspiring story, very inspiring approach to life. He helps entrepreneurs find their own breakthrough moments, either in their businesses or in their lives. Daniel, do you have any sort of events coming up? How can people learn more about the All-In principles?
The best way to find me is to go to allinpodcast.com. And, there's free resources there. Obviously, there's the podcast shows as well. And, just look for news and updates with different things, with events and resources that we'll be providing over the next actually forever until I leave this earth.
I love that. Nobody else says that. Only Dan Giordano. Thank you so much. This has been a great privilege. Folks, Dan Giordano, allinpodcast.com. Go to that site right now. Subscribe. You'll love the pod. It's on regular play from me. It's been a pleasure. Dan, thank you. All right, folks, until tomorrow, this has been the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. We'll see you then. Up, up, and away!
Thanks for supporting my dad's show. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to iTunes. He said hot chocolate is for closers. If you don't subscribe, I don't get hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate.
Fear not. Although this chapter of Bravepreneur Parents Academy has come to its conclusion, we have many more adventures for you and your brave little heroes. Head over to bravequest.me for access to the Brave Quest Journal, an interactive activity playbook that rewards your little ones with points for accomplishing tasks that build character and unleash your child's inner superhero all before bedtime. We look forward to having you join us for more adventures next time on Bravepreneur Parents Academy.